The
This
Rhome
conference will now be recorded.
meeting together. This is December the 8th, 2022. We do have a quorum. We're going to do things a little out of order. I've gotten permission from the city attorney, blessing from the city attorney. So we're going to do things a bit out of order this evening. So the council agenda will be somewhat jumbled. I think we do need to go ahead and have our invocation. That would be up to Pastor Ricky, please.
Good evening. Would you pray with me? Gracious God, on this night and in this busy holiday season, we are grateful for the opportunity to set some time aside to care for the business of the city and this community. God, we know that you are in the midst of us, and this time of year we see you in the faces of our neighbors and strangers on the street. And we pray, God, that you might continue to help us build up this community, that it might more reflect your love, your care, your heart for people, and that this year we might offer signs of love and peace and hope and joy to others in your name. God, be with us in all that we do. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. For one of the items, we are going to go ahead and convene into executive session. Um, just a second. Let's see. Section 551.074 for personnel, discuss appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or hear complaint or charge against an officer or employee in executive session unless officer or employee requests a public hearing. And we will go to executive session for the topic of police officer. It is 6:02. Yeah, Mrs. Wilson, let's go to executive session. And then we're used to that. Yeah. All right.
This conference will now be recorded.
It's 7:10. We'll reconvene into regular session. Got a choice of two motions based on advice of the attorney.
I move to uphold Chief Debus's decision to terminate the employment of Jeffrey Pradia by the city of Rome.
Who was the second? All right, all in favor? Do you need a roll call vote on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move on to public comments.
Aye.
Council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, a council member or mayor may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, and/or may propose that the item be placed on a future agenda or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. If you are attending the meeting via streaming and you would like to make a comment, you must email the city secretary at citysecretary@cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and must identify each subject you plan to present to be recognized. If the writer of a public comment is unable to read their own comment, it should be given to a friend, family member, or associate that is able to attend in person and read a statement in their stead. Public comments made in person require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting, and the form must identify each subject the speaker plans to present. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individual shall be cause for termination of time privileges and removal from council chambers. Okay, Ms. Odom, what you got?
Our first speaker is Lisa Wilson by Joanne Wilson.
Lisa's subject is Lisa Ann Wilson, 240 West First, Rome, Texas. Her subject is transparency, open records request, City of Rome page, Facebook page, and Public Works recognition. Mayor and council members. Status update. Citizens need more transparency. We demand information be provided by the City of Rome and our city Facebook pages, beginning with status updates as the petition for Mayor Pro Tem to step down. Previously, this individual negotiated the prior administrator's contract and severance pay, and will this individual be involved in the contract term negotiations for a new administrator? What is being done about the petition? Where are we on the upgrade of the West Side Sewer Plant? Do we have any outstanding TCEQ violations? If so, this should be posted on the city page. Are we still advertising for a fire chief and public works chief? Where? Since we don't have qualified individuals locally, we need to get this show on the road. Where are we on the approved repairs for existing buildings? Please return the historical marker to its proper place. Do we still have official records under the water tower? And if so, what is the plan to properly classify them? What about court records in the old the old house? Are you reviewing the exorbitant utility rates? If the government body and acting staff would be more transparent and keep citizens informed, City of Rome Facebook page, keep us updated. It might slow down open record requests. We are not being nosy. We are simply curious about the inner workings of our city. If more of these open records were handled in-house and not being forwarded to the lawyer, I believe it could help reduce our legal fees substantially. That money could be used elsewhere. Stop blaming the citizens for open records. Recently, when the interim administrator was out of town, who was left in charge? We have an elected mayor. If you remember, she was elected by the citizens who deemed her quite capable. Tonight's agenda indicates an item, public comments. I hope the governing body is not trying to limit this. Also, please join me in a shout out to our Public Works employees, Chris, Jesse, and Craig, for their tireless effort in restoring our water after a main was cut. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time and have a good holiday.
Our next speaker is Joanne Wilson.
Okay, I am Joanne Wilson, 240 West First here in Rome. I've been here for so long, most of you know, and just as a side note, my Christmas lights are out. So 240 West First, make sure and drive by. Uh, hey, right next door to your church. So that, okay, what will your leadership legacy be, council and mayor? Leadership legacy speaks to how you want to be remembered as a leader. After you are no longer in a leadership position, what will people say about how you led? Will they remember the outrageous contract and subsequent equally outrageous severance package you provided to our previous city administrator? Will they remember the extremely high water and sewer rates? What about the high impact fees, high legal fees, engineering fees? The list goes on. Tonight is the time to show you care about our city and the exceptional employees that make sure our city runs as smoothly. Do not enter into a contract for a city administrator that provides more perks for a new employee than what you provide our current wonderful employees. Do not approve an action such as providing police support for a neighbor city that costs our own citizens and may see a reduction in services. Do not delay filling our department head vacancies. We've got a fire chief, a public works chief, an administrator, and to use that salary lapse to pay for outrageous salaries. If these jobs are that necessary, then fill them. If not, make other choices. The citizens recently spoke via petition asking for one of you to step down. Election sign-up time begins mid-January 2023, not too far away. Are you doing the job the citizens expect? If not, this may show up at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson.
That was our last public comment.
I've got some announcements. City Hall will be closed for Christmas party tomorrow, December 9th, 2022, from 12 to 2. City Hall will be closed Christmas, December 23rd and December 26th, 2022. City Hall's closed January 2nd, 2022 for New Year's Day. And Court Clerk Christy Adams is now a certified court clerk level 2. I do have an announcement to make, but since we've rearranged this meeting, I'm going to wait till the end to make my announcement. And does council have any announcements?
I have a public announcement about an opportunity that has come to our community. I was at another meeting, so I couldn't wear this t-shirt, so I will just show it to you. And so the short story of this is that the Boyd Church, First United Methodist Church, and the Rhome United Methodist Church have partnered together, and they did some research and determined and learned what we mostly know, that this is a early childhood learning, and they call it a desert, meaning that there's not enough services for families that work and have young children. And so the two churches have partnered together and worked through different levels of the United Methodist Church. They raised together almost $100,000 in order to start this. In mid-January, the Boyd Church will have been renovated to meet this need, and that we will take in initially starting 4 infants, and then we have room, I believe, for 18 3 to 5-year-olds. So folks that work, they need a place for their children to go. Also, there is an after-school component to that service. So if you know someone that needs a place for their children to go, that's safe, that's licensed, because it's hard to find them here, then all they need to check out, it's called WesleyEarlyLearning.org. They can go on and check it out, see if it's anything that they might be interested in. But as far as you look at the greater area, there's just not much childcare except a few folks that work at home. So it's just we all work together and for a common cause, and it's taken us a while. And we also then applied for some grant money, and that we've been successful obtaining that grant. So it's an opportunity for our kids and their families.
All right. Any other announcements? We'll go to the consent agenda. Minutes of the City Council regular session dated November 10th, 2022. I guess we need to hear a motion on that.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
I'll second.
and all in favor.
Aye.
Departments, Administration, Building and Development, Fire Rescue, Municipal Court, Police and Public Works. Do we have any verbal announcements or what's just in the package? Yep. All right. Let's go on to public hearing. City Council to conduct a public hearing to consider a replat, one tract being legally described as acres 3.00, abstract A817 JC, also known as 401 East Hickory Street, Rome, Texas. And this item will call the public hearing at 7:23. However, we are going to recess this until January 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. So we'll close actually, we've got a second public hearing too for okay. Then we'll close it 7:24. Open the second one, item D, to conduct a public hearing to consider a specific use permit legally described as block 7.5, 43 Original Town, Rome, 0.9900 acres, also known as 311 Old Mill Road, Rome, Texas 76078. And it is 7:24 on that. But we've also been asked to recess this until January 12th, 2023. So we'll close public session also at 7:24 on that. We'll move on to discussion and necessary action regarding, that's section E, I'm sorry. Discussion necessary action regarding a replat, one tract being legally described as acres 3.00, abstract A817 JC, also known as 401 East Hickory Street, Rome, Texas 76078. And I'll need a motion to table.
I so motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Discussion necessary action regarding a specific use permit legally described as block 7.543 Original Town, Rome, 0.9900 acres, also known as 311 Old Mill Road, Rome, Texas 76078. I need a motion to table.
I so motion.
Is that Kathy? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discussion and any, item G. Discussion any necessary action regarding State Highway 114 budget amendments. Billboard, 114 billboard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite Mr. Randy Pierce to come up to the podium. You'll want to turn on the microphone. Mr. Pierce is a landowner of a plot of land out on 114 at County Road 4841 and wants to talk to us and you guys in particular about the possibility of erecting a billboard out there. And he's got some specifics on that he wanted to share with you.
I'm Randy Pierce, and again, yeah, here we go again. Randy Pierce. I've got a piece of property just east of town on 114 in Center. Okay. Okay. Can't look behind me. All right, that's good. Okay. Can we do it this way? Will this work? Okay. Again, the property's here, and to give you an idea, here's 4841. What I'm looking to do is to put a billboard on this little small triangular piece of property that was generated, I guess, whenever they rerouted 4841, where it used to come along the south side of my property and merge into 114. I guess at the time that they widened 114, they decided this needs to come in perpendicular to meet the new road. Why the landowner at that particular point, this was prior to me owning it, why they left it that way, I'm not quite sure. I've been looking to try to find some reasonable use for the property. Had a taco stand there for a little bit, but didn't really think that was optimal use. But if you go to the next one, you can see an aerial view of the property as it is. There we go. Here's the location of that small triangle piece. Here's the existing buildings that I have, where I've got I've got several different kinds of tenants, anywhere from exercise facilities. Got to have the directions. Anywhere from exercise facilities to a new doctor's office, which is actually expanding this week. Got insurance agents, music instruction, all different kinds of tenants, including oil field services. This property on the back. But again, this would be a pretty good opportunity to advertise not only for city services, which I had spoken about, the possibility of giving you guys some signage time if you've got special events throughout the year. We can take a look at the schedule and you guys can have time on the board to keep all the citizens and the traffic up to date. Oh, on the next one of the issues that the state of Texas has with issuing these permits, yeah, the bigger map. No, that's all the engineering stuff. We don't need that. Probably prior to that. Okay, oh, there we go. Here's that actual location here. One of the parameters the state of Texas has with location of billboards is they can't be any closer than 1,500 feet to another one. I went through today and looked. Here's the closest one around, and they're 4,400 to 5,000 feet away, quite a ways at the very least. But again, I think we could probably best serve this property in the area, the community, with advertising that we can support local businesses. Yeah, to be a digital board. I did ask one piece that did not get included in what I had emailed over is a picture of a board itself, which I think everyone should have a copy of. And if you've got any questions, I'd be glad to discuss it.
You said it was 4841. Is that the one? Is that the intersection there across from Bywell? Is
Yes.
that where we're talking about?
Yeah, Bywell's back over here.
Okay.
It's a pretty busy intersection
And you're
right
on
here.
yours is on the south side
Correct.
side of 114.
It'd be the southwest corner of that intersection.
Gotcha.
The other businesses are a little hard to see, but they are right in here along 114. my other existing buildings.
That is in the city limits?
It's not in city limits, it's in the city ETJ. And that's the issue is currently the ordinances are written so that billboards are prohibited completely within the ETJ. And again, I had discussions about this before, and anyway, it's my understanding is possibility that you guys may allow one to go in there, in this area in the ETJ.
Am I on now? Okay. So would you have control over what goes on that, or would you sit out to another company that would oversee the operations? How
Yeah.
would that work?
Well, my experience has always been in building buildings, developing properties or building houses, whatever. This is my first entry into this. I've got a couple of guys that I've consulted with. One of them is the actual manufacturer of the digital billboard. The other one takes care of the actual leasing. Something I probably don't have the expertise to do myself, but they would. I would certainly be responsible and oversee it, but yes, someone else would handle the day-to-day management.
Well, of course, you know, over here thinking, well, there may be local things that would happen, like events or something like that. Um, is that does it have the capability to offer the city some donated time on the board for public events that we might be having, or something like that?
Absolutely, and this is, one of my first thoughts is we get together a list of your annual events, and we can pre-plan these things. I mean, I haven't worked out all the numbers exactly. I've got to talk to a few other people, but the whole idea is you could have potentially 200 exposures per day per event that you got coming up. Now, I would tell you that I probably wouldn't want to work, as I understand it, wouldn't want it to conflict with like race day at the Speedway or something like that, where opportunity to do a little catch up.
Mhm.
But during normal events, whatever, I mean, 200 exposures per day. When you're looking, I don't know what the traffic count is now on 114 in that area, but it's pretty busy, especially early and late. But you're seeing a lot of people will get an opportunity to have a look.
Really can't get into the specific details because currently right now this would be prohibited. So before we can get to that stage, the council will have to take action to amend its ordinances. And once the ordinance is amended, then we'll set up procedures for actually considering this particular request. So we're not to that stage yet. This is the city administrator just wanted to know if you wanted to go down that pathway of engaging in changing the ordinance and doing those things that are necessary to get us to that stage.
And one question about that, can we change the ordinance to be only effective in ETJ and have a separate, so city limits might not be able to, but ETJs could? I mean, I'm just asking, can it be formed that way?
Yeah, I haven't actually spent a lot of time on that, but yes, the state law specifically authorizes a general law type A city like Rome is to regulate billboards in its ETJ. So there are several different ways we can go about that. We could theoretically just do a specific ordinance that just tracks that language. It's in Chapter 216 of the Local Government Code, and we could probably just track that language exactly. But again, didn't want to engage my time researching how to do that kind of ordinance until we got direction from the council that you guys were even interested in. Some councils will respond and say, absolutely no, we don't want any billboards, and that cuts it off right there, and we don't spend any time. But if there is an interest to proceed, then we'll have to do some of that homework and go that direction.
Thank you.
Would this be something I would ask Bywell whether they wanted a billboard outside their front door?
No, there's no plan to take a poll or a vote. No, that would be up to you guys to make that decision.
I mean, I would want to hear from those people that live there whether they want to look at a billboard all day long or not.
Sure, this is where it starts. You know, this is Mr. Pierce wanted to come in and kind of give you an idea of what he wanted to use that land for, and it'll start the public discourse.
I think this reminds me of those business meetings that we had, and a lot of our business owners wanted to erect some sort of signage. I think one was mentioned, best burger in Wise County, come to Big Z. And I think that, in the ETJ is one thing, like you said, versus in the city. So I think this might help solve some of that problem. We can do a little bit of promoting for the city and the businesses as well, depending on what we work out. But like you said, Michelle, I definitely want to hear from the people that are going to be living across the street from it, and the businesses that are surrounding that as well, because maybe they want to donate their money to get their business up on there. Because as we've seen, I think one of the businesses went out of business. Maybe it would have been different if they would have been promoted up there. And so, I think if we could put something out to get some citizen input from Bywell, as well as the local businesses in the area that, might be useful for, I would at least consider listening to it.
Well, that is one of the things that we've discussed and tried to work on at different times with these major interferences that we allow to happen. But we've said to our local people that are here, that are business owners, that, for those of you that have never owned a business, I mean, it is a personal commitment, financially, emotionally. It is your time. You live it and breathe it. How do I know that? Because we ran one for 10 years. And so that's what we have said to our local folks here that have businesses, and we want them to survive as this growth comes in and there's other commerce. So yes, the indications we've had at some of those meetings is that they do believe that approach to publicity, to outside of just the newspaper and word of mouth, is important to these businesses. So I do think there's a need, and I do think we should investigate it.
So I think, what do we need tonight? Just direction to advise our city administrator to start looking this through and putting some stuff together, putting stuff out, right? Okay. Is everybody on board with that? There you go.
If I might make one other comment, you're talking about these small businesses locally. The good part about a digital billboard is it doesn't necessarily get changed just once a month. It can be changed almost hourly, which is not practical, but the point of it is smaller businesses can afford it. They don't have to go on a major ad campaign. They can hit the special events, or if they've got some open house going on. All of these things are something to think about. Anyway, thanks very much.
You need a motion then?
No, we just providing direction to city staff.
All right, we'll move on to H. Discussion any necessary action regarding fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendments. And that's the one I'd ask to be tabled. In the meantime, though, I've got a Mrs. Shepherd at City Hall was gracious enough to pull some actuals for me, and that show what we've actually spent. These budget amendments are quite hefty. It's over $400,000, and that we're having to move funds. One of them was a concern to me, and I brought it up at the last meeting, was for money that was allocated for sewage repairs. At the time, this was February 24th, Council voted to have the emergency repairs funded from general fund savings. That was McCabe, and then Ty seconded. Motion passed unanimously. But now we're moving those funds once again. biggest question I always get from any of the question I most often get, they say, where's our money going? We're going to have to go ahead and pass the amendments. I don't know how this is going to materialize with our auditor. But while I'm doing that, I'm also going to recommend that this report that I got from Mrs. Shepherd be made available on the city website. It shows our actual expenditures, not just what's budgeted, but what is actual. So we'll need a motion to approve the budget amendments.
Just quickly for clarification, the repair that you're, that wasn't double paid. It was paid through those funds, and maybe Shani can correct me if I'm wrong, but then we have to move the money over. When you move money over from one line item to the next, you're not doubling the pay, you're merely allocating it to that fund.
That's correct. The money did come from the savings, which was not in the budget. Really, all we're trying to do is make the line item even. The money was moved from general fund savings to the water line item where the money came from to write the check. So we're not actually over. It just wasn't initially in the budget.
It just, I think we just need more transparency as far as our finances and
We could leave the
money.
line item negative when the auditor comes in if you would like that.
Well, we've got a series of budget amendments, though. A series. So,
Don't we normally have budget line item change every year and the auditor doesn't have a problem with that?
Yes, ma'am. The auditor requires that before he'll come in. We have to get all our, we can't have negative line items for the auditor.
It's just checkbook 101, just balancing it out, making the bottom line zero. We're not spending extra, we're not giving extra, we're not doing anything extra. We're just moving it around so everything's zero. Right.
Microphone, Ms. Knitzky.
Microphone.
I'm not going to have that in my checking account, so I don't want to get fined or feed or whatever else, so I'm going to go to my savings and pull it from there. It's a way to make it balance out. That's just standard process. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, I also would like to, I'm not against posting anything to do with our finances, but really and truly the most useful information is going to be the budget for 2022. After these are moved, then post the entire budget so that we can see those line items, what was really spent. You you can't predict 12 months in advance exactly what life brings us. And so this final adjustment is to make sure that that budget then is a picture of actual expenditures and where how much that is and how much wasn't spent related to what we budgeted. So this is a living document. A budget is nothing more than a living document, and as we really do expenditures, then we see the real picture, the real numbers. And so that's what we're trying to get to here, is to get the final expenditures into the right place, and it will have what we budgeted and what we actually spent. And that's all we're trying to do. It's not sleight of hand. It's nothing underhanded. Everybody does it, even you, whether you believe it or not, you do. And so that's it. So I would suggest that we make those changes and then publish the final 2022 budget.
To Ms. Priest's point, that's what we plan to do. So we will make these line item adjustments to make sure that we can have an auditor come in. Then an outside auditor comes in, somebody not affiliated with the city, but somebody we hire to oversee our work because we want to make sure we're right. The auditor comes in, he double checks our work, he makes sure it's right, and he confirms that we're on the right path with this. At that point, I'm quite certain we will publish the entire budget, including the actuals. And then that's what we'll work for on next year's budget.
and then in the meantime, as long as we're on the subject of actuals, what's the cost? And I had asked for it to be put on the agenda specifically, but I think I put it on there as department information. Having administration issue a monthly report on what we're spending every month as compared to the budget and what's left over for each item. Something on a monthly basis, I think would be very helpful to our citizens and would show us, it'd be a gesture of our transparency as well. Just suggestion. All right. I guess we'll need a motion for the budget amendments.
I make a motion to accept the budget amendments.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and discussion any necessary, I'm sorry, item J, discussion any necessary action releasing the CCN 10989, also the city administrator. What'd I miss? Oh, I apologize. I, discussion and necessary action regarding interlocal agreement with Aurora for police services.
So this is the proposal that we brought before you a month ago that you've had time to look at and consider. And we believe that it works in the best interest of both Aurora, the city of Aurora, and the city of Rome to allow us to partner in this capacity. And we're asking staff would authorize to empower interim city administrator Eric Davis to execute the agreement with the city of Aurora for law enforcement service.
First off, can you please explain the process that you went through with Aurora and how they chose Rome?
Yes, so we were contacted some time ago, maybe in August, about the possibility of us adding part-time patrols to this city. They asked us to make a proposal. They asked another city to make a proposal. And then once they got those proposals, they had us come in and kind of answer questions and explain what we could offer. Following that, they contacted me again and said they wanted to enter into an agreement with our department and our city on a basis where we answer calls and then we provide limited amounts of patrol in their city. And so they asked us to do it, and we wrote a contract they agreed to, and then it went to the attorney, and then it came back, and I believe both cities were happy with the way it was written.
So just making sure I got the gist of the contract, we're looking at the way you set this up, 50,000, and that's for 6 months. Is that correct?
No, sir. It's 50,000 quarterly, 12,500, and basically what that includes is 16 to 20 hours a week of patrols and answering calls and conducting basic law enforcement services in their city. We believe we can add that to the officers' regular duties, and we don't think it will negatively impact the city of Rome. This contract is written so that in the event that Aurora, 3 months in decides, no, we're not really getting our money's worth, or 3 months in, Rome thinks, oh, we really kind of overextended ourselves. We need to back out of this. We can do so with notification to them, and then we can cancel the contract. So there are outs written into this contract. So if we miss, because we haven't done this before, we go on. I my team and got their input on what they thought we could handle and what they were comfortable doing. Me as the chief administrator of the department, what I thought we were able to do, and I believe we came to an agreement with the city of Aurora and ourselves that it's going to be a good deal for both of us. But in the event that we were certainly wrong about what we thought, we are able to get out of the contract if we need to. I don't expect that to happen.
I know we talked about this before, and I think we agreed that if we're making sure that the towns around us are staying safe, then that's only going to help us be a little bit safer. But with the 50,000 that we're looking at, that's going to cover the cost of gas and maintenance on the vehicles and registration fees and et cetera, et cetera. And so under this contract, is there anything coming out of Rome's pocket to pay for this other than the standard use of the cars and
No, we
time?
would basically just do routine patrols through their neighborhoods, business checks, things of that nature, and then answer the calls for service as they come in. They're pretty frequent. But no, it doesn't cost the city of Rome anything other than our time to help them out.
I think it's just being a friendly neighbor until they can get up and running on their own or figure out another deal. So I think I'm good with that.
I'd expressed concerns the last meeting, and these are calls 24/7. Is that correct? Every day of the week.
Yes, any calls that came in, we would answer them for the city of Aurora.
Because as I had mentioned, I had done an open records request with the sheriff's office regarding the calls that were dispatched to Aurora. And, actually it's like 47 pages. There were a total of 900, approximately 900 calls in the last fiscal year. So I was concerned about, the amount of coverage that we're looking at as far as that goes. It just so happened in the newspaper just recently, this was the December 2nd, there was an article. It was actually under their crime watch only in Weiss. South Randall Street, which is just behind me, deputies responded to a disturbance in the city limits of Rome due to no officer being available, where a heavily intoxicated man was attempting to fight multiple parties. Anyway, but the sheriff's deputies handled that, and that was in our limits. And so, I'm concerned that if we've got situations here, it just seems to me that something's going to have to give as far as providing, if we're not, this was just an incident. I don't know if we didn't have an officer on duty or if we did have an officer on duty and he was just called off for something else and the sheriff's office had to intervene. I just don't want this ending up costing our taxpayers more or costing us our own service that our residents expect.
That's part of the reason why they have the clause in there where they can, either side can back up if it became too expensive. So,
Eric, on your research of how many calls to expect in Aurora, what kind of research did you do, and what were your numbers that you came up with?
So I'm not sure where the mayor got those numbers. I really don't,
Yeah, I got the sheriff's office.
because they couldn't provide city limit numbers for us. So we spoke with the officers who work day to day, and it's very infrequent. Again, if we are wrong about that and we are overextended, we can get out of this. But I don't know what the mayor's talking.
So you spoke with the officers on the day-to-day. You're talking about our officers?
That's correct, because we're all dispatched on the same channel. So we hear every call in Aurora. We hear every call, obviously in Rome. We hear every call into Newark. We hear every call into Shale Creek. So we have a really good working knowledge of how busy it is in each area of this county.
So since we have a couple officers in here that are going to be the ones on the calls, I'd like to ask them if that's possible.
Sergeant Solitaire, can you come up to the microphone? You'll need to turn it on.
Based on your experience of daily patrols and your other officers, how often are y'all assisting in Rome or in Aurora city limits?
Generally, we unless it's a officer safety situation or some other major event, generally speaking, we don't assist with calls in Aurora right now. Like I said, except in those specific circumstances. Now, what she was talking about is it's somewhat anecdotal, but like he said, we listen to the radio all day, every day. We know when calls are dropping over in Aurora. We know when calls are dropping over here. I mean, obviously in Rome, they'll send us to them specifically. We know when they're dropping over off of 4841 and those county roads back over there. We know all around here, out on Hickory, out in Diamond Ridge, out in the Strawberry Estates. I mean, we know where all these calls are happening, and the 3 a day is not what is happening over in Aurora. Like there are days that we don't have a single call for service here in Rome, much less, 3 a day over there. There are conflicts from time to time, even here in Rome. Sometimes, matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, there was a fatal motorcycle crash over here on 114. Officer Stanwyck here was tied up on a call. I got called up out of bed. I had to come deal with that other call. It happens. And I think that, like I said, we discussed it, he and Sergeant Ritchie and I, and if speaking as part of that leadership team, if we didn't feel like it was able to be handled, then we wouldn't have even pursued it. It was we feel like we can handle this. We can provide them a high level of service for the time that we are, just like we do for the citizens of Rome. And it's, as you said, in our opinion, it is a community building exercise, as well as providing services for folks that essentially have none right now.
Thank you.
So when they say there's a call in Aurora, could that part of Aurora be in the ETJ of Aurora?
Absolutely. Yeah, similar to when we get calls here.
No, we would not answer a call in the
But-
ETJ of Aurora.
Yes, but I'm thinking.
I think she's
those
asking about those calls.
900 calls is
Yes.
including.
Yeah, because we get all day, every day, we get calls. This is happening. I live in Rome. This is happening. Okay, now actually that's going to be in the city. That's a county call. We'll get you in contact with them. It's the same principle here. We are going to concern ourselves only with the city of Aurora. To that end, I'm actually compiling of all of the cities, all the streets that are in Aurora that we would specifically cover. So anything out of that is a quick reference. So if the officers get a call, county road, whatever, in Aurora, then he has a quick reference. Okay, no, that's actually going to be a county call. Go ahead and call the sheriff's office. So we are going to concern ourselves only with the actual city limits of Aurora.
Do we know the population of Aurora?
I don't know off the top of my head.
About 1,300.
Well, if y'all don't have anything else to say, I'd like to make a motion to authorize our city administrator to execute the interlocal agreement with Aurora for police services.
Second?
A second.
In favor?
Aye.
Discussion and necessary, J, sorry. Discussion necessary action regarding releasing CCN number 10989.
Mic check. There we go. The background on this is the City of Rome holds the Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, the CCN, for half of the property located at 5475 Texas 114. That is the Soccomore property, if you're familiar. The business landowner would like the City of Rome to relinquish the CCN just for their property. We own half of it. Aqua Texas owns the other half. In order they may provide their own public water supply system. For those listening at home, basically, as the holder of the CCN, we have first rights of offering water to Soccomore. When they built that building, they put in their own well and storage tank. So they provide their own water. Well, as they've grown as a business, they reached 25 employees recently. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality stepped in and said, well, now that you have 25 employees, you have to be a public water supply company to have your own water. At that point, they can only do that if we allow them to do that. So our options are to allow them to do that, to continue doing what they've been doing on their own property, or we have to engage engineers to determine how much it's going to cost to extend water service from the closest point we have it out to Soccomore. Even at that point, they would have the option of saying, oh, we can do it cheaper by just staying with what we're doing. So basically what this is doing is it's relinquishing the CCN for that 10-acre property because we can't provide water now anyway. and it allows them to continue what they're doing. I asked them, are you going to dig a deeper well? No. Are you going to have a bigger storage tank? No. They have no plans of offering water to anybody else because there's nobody else there. It's just their company. And they are the only changes they'll have to make are equipment changes and hardware changes. They'll have to make some investments on that to come into compliance with TCEQ. So basically, that's what this is. We got a letter from consulting and environmental engineers asking us, and basically the two choices: the city of Rome does wish to provide service to Saco, or does not wish to provide service to Sagamore, and we consent to providing water service only this location near our CCN. So that's what it boils down to.
So in layman's terms, either we give it to them and they continue doing business as is, no cost to the city, or we possibly spend millions to run water lines out there to service one company right now.
As I understand it, we would not end up paying for that. We would just provide them a cost and say they would have to pay that. But they could turn around and say, well, we already have water and we can do it for this and trump our ability to make them pay for that.
I think it's a no-brainer on that one. I motion to relinquish or release CCN 10989 to Sycamore. Will that suffice, Carver?
Second.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion and necessary action regarding resignation of Councilmember Patrick Meehan.
As the council is aware, Mr. Meehan submitted his resignation from the council, and we're just asking that you accept his resignation. It was done in writing, and it has been passed along to everyone.
Motion?
I'm sad to see him go, but motion to approve resignation.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and necessary action regarding appointment of City Council Place 5. This one I would recommend that we do it as we've done before, is post it publicly on the city website and allow citizens to apply for the open seat.
I agree with that. And then I think that gives them a to apply.
Yeah.
And then, as we've always done, they come in, give their statements. We can ask questions and appoint someone in.
Is that a motion?
Well, real quick, for expediency, we have already developed the application. Post that online tomorrow. I think Shane is ready to do that already. Would y'all like us to set a due date for those to be turned in maybe a couple weeks prior to the next council meeting, and then set up the interviews maybe the week before the council meeting, and then y'all can make your final decision, or do you want to do it all at the council
I think
meeting?
we ought to do it all at the council meeting.
That's how we've always done it.
Okay.
As long as we can get the, everything like the week before with the packet to review.
Okay,
We
well, how about a due date of a week before the council meeting?
That's fine. We just Q&A like we've always done.
Perfect.
Motion?
Is that a motion or just direction?
Doesn't legally matter, but if you want to make it in the form of a motion, go right ahead.
Okay, go.
I motion to post the open position to city website.
Okay, second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Discussion necessary action regarding the process of filing a complaint on personnel. That would be Mrs. Priest. You have a motion, or no, you can table your own, I guess. All right. Discussion, any necessary action regarding public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to talk a little bit about public comment, and I thought tonight was a very good example of how our citizens spoke in a positive way and made suggestions about things that they would like to see the city council look at, consider, and approach to those things. That was just my comment, was that the public comment section is not for the purpose of, as we know in item number 4, to gripe about people. Instead, it's an opportunity for our citizens to make suggestions and give us some ideas on things to consider. And so that was just, I just wanted to review a little bit about that. But I did think that tonight it was positive. Maybe I didn't agree with everything that was said there, but that's okay. And for we look for those suggestions. But that's what we're looking for. That's helpful to us, and it's also a positive thing when we work together to try to come to those kind of conclusions. And that's my statement. Anybody else have anything?
Move on. Discussion and necessary action regarding the water main break. Most of you know that I wanted this put on there, and it's actually combined with the other. We had a water main breakdown in Ellis in the summer as well. It was repaired. The water was off for a period of time, and it was repaired. And I just, basically, I'm looking for some gesture of goodwill to our citizens. We pay such high rates, both between the water and the sewage, and I'm just looking for some kind of goodwill gesture towards our residents and they're our customers. A small refund, $5 or $10 or something to that effect, to offer to compensate these people. As I say, we have such very, very high water and sewage rates, and I just thought I'd throw it out there, see if the council would consider it.
From staff, did this water main break affect any of the bills of residents?
Well, I haven't looked at all their bills, but the water was off for 6 hours.
How long is the water off in the summer over in Ellis?
As memory serves, it was
the night before,
longer
then
than
it was 2
that.
o'clock
Yes, ma'am.
in
It
the
was longer than
afternoon.
yes, ma'am. Yeah,
It's nothing that's required. It's a goodwill gesture towards our constituents and our water consumers.
I just want clarity because I truly don't understand.
Mhm.
So when the Ellis situation happened, water was delivered to families. Is that correct?
that affected 10 or 15 houses at the end of the road. It was contained to that one area, and yes, we hand delivered water to them.
So we provided them water, and then there was no costs that showed up on their bill. Is that correct?
No, ma'am, we didn't bill them for the bottled water.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure that we weren't charging them for any water that ran out of the ground that was not their fault.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think just in that regard, I think the biggest complaint I heard from folks was they didn't hear about it happening.
That's my next item.
Well, yeah, and again, we used to have a process in place, right? And a neighbor of mine that works in Decatur had mentioned that as well. Sorry. Go ahead.
Like I said, I just wanted council to consider just a goodwill gesture towards our consumers. How much of that? P, discussion and necessary action regarding communications from City Hall, and that's kind of on the same line. It seems like several years ago we had something that was implemented that we were able to notify people by phone, whether it was this, and we had another incident that was related. It was the police incident that was related to, there were neighbors there. You had called me, and I'd already gotten 3 calls that somebody had come by my house because they were concerned over police presence in backyards in the neighborhood. And so what I'm thinking is if we had some way of, not everybody's on social media, and by the time this got out on social media, most everything was over and said and done. But both for like the water main break and this particular incident, is there something to the nature of like a robocall that the city could implement that would notify our residents, and we would be consistent with it, for those not only with cell phones and internet access, but also some of our older folks that basically have a landline?
If you're not talking, if you could turn yours off, because I think it won't handle more than one. So from 2018 to 2021, the city did have a with a it's called Code Red, I believe, and they paid for that. I believe to some of the staff, they didn't make the decision, but they believe that the reason that was canceled in 2021 was it was several $1,000s for the program, and it was rarely used. So they didn't think it was a good use of the citizens' money. If you, as a council, want to revisit that and ask us to find money for that, or investigate other services, we're happy to do that.
Thought behind this is just, you know, uh, keeping our constituents informed, and letting people know.
If
Because
I
it just,
recall, that service also sent out not only those kinds of informational notices, they also kept up with like storm warnings. When it was anything that might show at risk or inconvenience or whatever. And truly, I didn't realize that just kind of fell by the wayside. But I did wonder where it went, uh, because our our storm system, we do have the sirens, but they're not the strongest in the world. And the more houses that we have, and the greater the area, the less effective they are. And you let the wind be blowing from the wrong direction, then that helps carry the sound away. And so that was a helpful tool for warnings, or watch the sky because a storm is coming your way, kind of thing. So yeah, I'd like to see that investigated. I'm a no person. I want to know.
okay, we need a motion. Motion on that. Next thing is a discussion regarding progress of fire hall repairs approved by council on June 23rd, 2022. I've seen, got the minutes here, where the council had authorized $50,000 in fund for and I just want the status, where we are with that, with those repairs, fire hall.
Sure. At your recommendation direction, the city did ask contractors to come in and give an overall assessment of the building and determine what needed to be done to get it in better shape. Unfortunately, both contractors, one refused to give a bid and one gave a bid. And when we said, let's move forward on possibly getting some of these repairs done, that contractor backed out as well. We did not have anybody that would want to come in, give us a bid on on that building and do the work for us. In the interim, we've had a few problems surface. Um, Example would be the hot water heater that was not in code and it went out. So we used some of that money to replace that. We also have a shared bathroom that the commode has separated from the floor and the pipe broke underneath. So we are having to have a plumber come in and actually redo that part of it. So somebody's there. We are unable to fulfill your desire of having a contractor take the entire job over. And our recommendation now is to authorize the department heads to piecemeal this in some of that work by calling individual repair people or painters or constructors or whoever they can get to come in and actually do some work for us individually instead of having one contractor oversee the project.
And that would be contingent on that it has to be code.
If I understand correctly, yes, ma'am, we're not going to hire
Yeah,
somebody
I'm
that's
just
not going to
saying,
follow the
we're
law.
not gonna shortcut this, whatever fair.
No, ma'am. For an example, is the hot water heater. It was only after it broke that the plumber came in and said, "Oh, you can't replace it like this. You're missing the vent pipe." And so it cost more money because we had to actually vent it outside the building to be in code and to keep our firefighters healthy and safe.
Mhm.
That's the kind of things we're coming across.
Need action on that, or?
I think if you just give us authorization to move forward with what the department heads want to do with each of their buildings, with the caveat that they can't go over that 50,000, I think it would not only help with the look and the structure of it, but it would make it a safer place for all of us to work.
So do we need to?
Can I so move on what you said?
I second.
Direction or, okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
And that's gonna be to have department heads look at what we'll take and get it done in-house, correct?
Well, it authorizes the department head to make the decision for each of their own buildings on what would be best for the employees, not only aesthetically, but safety-wise.
Just to remind, I think I really need to say this, but just in case, I mean, we'll still comply with any competitive bidding requirements and any of those kinds of things to spend the money, and if necessary, we'll come back to council for final approval, correct?
Correct.
All right, and discussion and necessary action regarding Ellis Homestead's chip seal, and that was mine, because I'd gotten an email from one of Ellis folks, and I've talked to people over there, and I've driven through there also. I'm not going to read the whole email, but I will. I'd like to make folks aware that what we're doing. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is from one of our neighbors over in Ellis. Uh, the interim city administrator, Eric Davis, also got a copy of this. Pictures from 9/7 show no indication of this process being done within Ellis Hopes. He's talking about, the curing times and this and that. Anyway, process being done within the Ellis homestead, but do realize probably something was laid for some adherence and cure, although not the best. The video goes on to show that after applying the chips, the excess is swept away. We all know that this did not occur until week 5, and it was substantially more than just excess. In fact, I alone counted at least 5 full dump trucks, loads of loose gravel. We're now left with a very rutted and bumpy, semi-hard, packed mess. In the video, the county left their drivers with a smooth, porous surface which to drive over, much like a new road made after it's done. We have far from that out here, with several dips, potholes, ruts, and tracks now embedded into this new chip seal. Hardly an upgrade from where we were. At the last city meeting, I left the team with a consideration for a solution, which was to find a remedy to further seal the road from dust. What I was given in return were statements that the budget only allowed for chip seal over repaving using asphalt. This is not a solution. And then he says, I urge you to look at this link, which is from a local Texas-based company that deals with dust and moisture mitigation for chip seal specifically. I don't know the cost, but would envision it would be an affordable option to put this one to rest. The roads won't cure any further, as we've had an entire month in October well above 65 degrees and many days still into the 90s. Waiting until next summer to wait and see will only exacerbate the issue and cause the road to be even more dusty when the extreme heat and driver conditions prevail. There also is the other point I made during the meeting, which is the vegetation between the old road and the chip seal. This is clearly in the right of way and not for the homeowners in Ellis Homestead to manage. Along my front yard, the weeds are now approaching 1.5 to 2 inches in several areas. When we hit the summer months, I can only envision these growing even taller. Um, A sealed road should not have vegetation growing in the road. I'm not a road engineer, but I have traveled the country extensively and have yet to see a sign stating road mowing ahead. I've seen mowers ahead, but never equipment in the road mowing the grass. This road is degrading our vehicle tires as the loose rocks and rough edges that remain slice across the tread as we turn, and can still hear several rocks pinging in the bottom of our cars as we drive through the neighborhood. Again, we did not move here willingly, knowing or wanting to live on a dirt or gravel road. When we purchased our home, it was nice paved streets, and this is what we want, is a nice, quiet, and smooth streets without all the dust. In closing, we continue to talk about tight budgets and growth, but having streets like this in a desirable part of your city will eventually depreciate the homes instead of appreciate the prices. People don't generally want to live on deplorable streets like this, especially as the two young men who presented about their family plot so eloquently. Change is coming, growth is coming, whether you like it or not. Please take these facts and comments to heart, and please vote to find some monies in 2023 to properly seal the roads here in Ellis Homestead. So that'll be up to the council.
Well, if nobody else is going to say anything, I will. I get criticized for that plenty. But so I grew up on a chip and seal road. I know what it looks like, and I know the process pretty well. And having lived in Kansas on county roads, they don't pave them there. They just pour bigger rocks, and so I know what the dust looks like as it rolls in across. So I have empathy certainly for road conditions. But I went over to Ellis this week, and I walked it. I got out and I walked it. I walked the right in front of two or three houses right there in this vicinity. I walked across the road and checked the other side of the road. I checked the middle of the road. I drove down to the cul-de-sac. I checked at 25 miles an hour, and that's the speed limit there. I, I didn't hear very many pings from the gravel if you're driving 25 miles an hour. Now, unfortunately, in May, when we began to discuss having this road work done, we had an engineer that stood up there and said, if you don't do something about that road, we get another big rain, you're going to lose that road out there, and it's going to cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't do something about that road. The gentleman that wrote that piece, they didn't buy that property until the end of June. But we had some folks that didn't believe the engineer that gave that information. They didn't believe that it was accurate. So we kept tabling it and we didn't get the work done. What were the temperatures in June? 110, some of them even hotter. If that had been laid before that heat wave came, then the seal job would have been much better. That would have been really, really hot. Gravel would have sunk down there with traffic. I'm not going to say it'd be perfect, but it would be better than it turned out to be today. So we did what we could to save the road so that it didn't turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars if a major rain came. We still have work to do. But what else happened in May? We lost our department head of public works. If we had had the same director at that time, I can promise you, knowing him like I do, that work would have gotten done and it would have gotten done more properly. But we didn't have the staff to oversee that quite the way it should have been. And we kept tabling and we had a lot of people who didn't want us to do that. They wanted to get their roads fixed, for example. or they thought it was a special area because it was Ellis instead of their place. So, we couldn't win no matter what we did, except we had to make a decision whether or not to save the road. Is it perfect? No. Is it a good place for you to get out there and try to ride your bicycle with all that gravel on there? Or walk your dog? No. No. It's not the best place to do that. But at least there is a road. And that road, no matter how smooth and good it looked, was on the brink of failure. And so we did what we thought we had to do. I don't know what it cost to go to hire a company that will come down and put that overlay to help um, stop the dust problem.
Miss Priest, I can speak to that.
Okay,
So
go
we
ahead.
did look into that. The gentleman called it surfactant. I can't remember what the name is, but I did look into the process. That process is really for gravel roads. It's not to go over chip seal. But if we did decide to try it on the chip seal road, um, I sat down with Public Works, the guys in Public Works. We looked at it, and the best we could tell it was going to be at least $10,000 for the equipment to do that, and it was only good for about a year and a half maybe. And so that's an option, but I don't think it really works for that roadway. To your point, I did go out and drive that. I drive it quite off, and it's a little better, and there's very little dust out there now. As you go into the neighborhood, the first quarter mile is actually it's like a county road, like a chip seal road, like it does, because there's a lot of traffic on that. But the farther you get into the neighborhood or into the sections of the turns where very little traffic goes, it's not pushing that rock down into the to the lower surface as quickly as we would like it to. But I believe over time it will.
Is there a possibility that to take like one of those heavy duty rollers and
So I spoke to Wise County today, Mr. Kent Deaton, I believe Kent Deaton. So I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. He was out there today looking at it. It's where it's supposed to be. It's where it's expected to be. There's really no option to change the way it is now. He wanted me to stress to the citizens that that road was going to fail. It was not going to continue to hold up. It was going to disintegrate, and it would be gravel, and you would have to remove it and then put in a asphalt. And I'm not a public works director. I'm just pretend to be one for a little while. But I've done some research on it. It's about 1.47 miles of roadway, and from searching on the internet what it would cost to asphalt that, basically asphalt paving, was going to be between $1 and $1.5 million. So what we did for about $50,000 to extend the life of that road, there are some there are some pros and cons to everything we do, um, but I think it is getting better.
well, the other thing is that I drove in every subdivision that has chip and seal or those kinds. The grass that grows into that area where they merge, that's in everybody's yard. Heck, I you know, I it, that's
And
it's just there.
I'll address that. I did send Public Works out. Well, I'm losing this. I did ask them to take a look at that, and the grass that has grown point is close to the edges and has died because it's winter. But we will go out in the spring, and if it's growing, we will kill it like we do in the bar ditches in certain areas or around public buildings or in the park. We can add that to our duties, and so you don't have, to this gentleman's point, grass growing up in the roadway. We would take care of that.
Okay. Well, I wish that the bond had passed and that every road in Rome could be addressed. I really do. It was disappointing for lots of reasons and for lots of people. But that's not what happened. And so we have to do what we can. And in this case, we just did all that we could do to try to save that road. And I'm sorry that it didn't turn out to be the perfect place. And unfortunately for this particular gentleman, he they bought the house the end of June, and it was just the timing of things. You know, if we'd gotten it down earlier, he would have seen a different road. So, so I'm sorry, but I don't know what we can do about it.
So unlike Councilmember Priest, I know nothing about chip seal. So when I went to work, we have a pavement and grounds department, and I went and talked to somebody from that department to find out if this is normal, you know, what's the process. And he said that yes, they do remove all of that loose gravel, which is what I evidently they did later on in the process. Yeah, and and also he talking about the it wearing the tires down because it's so rough. They said that that's normal. Also, that's just it's like sandpaper. So I mean, I'm getting this from some other, you know, like somebody else that has nothing to do with it. So um, yeah, and they also said because it's not traveled as much. So like that main road going in is getting better, but in the back it's still loose gravel and everything.
In the very back, all the way down in the cul-de-sac, and so you know, other than those people that live on the cul-de-sac, there's not much traffic, and so there was a significant difference in the amount of gravel, uh, like in front of Sam's house versus the cul-de-sac. And then there's a place where Mount Lane turns back toward the exit there, and there's only a couple of houses on that curve. And once again, you can see lots more gravel in front of their home, and that's because the general traffic doesn't go up there. And so yeah, there's still gravel there. You know, they didn't sweep up all of it. Uh, so I don't know. I just I, I felt I felt caught. I'd like to make everybody happy with their roads, but at the same time, we had to save that road, and we did the best we could.
I understand that, people don't like the statement that we said that we don't have the money in the budget, but we're on a fairly tight budget as it is, and if we put more money into the road budget, we got to take it out of somewhere else. And I mean, right now we just can't afford that. But the easy way to afford it is we could always raise taxes. That way we have the money to fix it all. But I don't think people want that to happen, so we have to do with what we got for right now. So unfortunately, that's the best we can do at this time, so that hazards don't get worse. And we'll do what we can in the future.
Are there are there funding opportunities from county or state? Uh, I'm asking anybody, you know, to help with road items for cities.
I do know that we partnered with Wise County to get this done, which saved us a substantial amount of money. But I don't know if there are things like that for road repair.
Can I ask somebody that's in the audience that might know? Former mayor, do you know of anything like that? Okay.
Former Mayor DeCredico just stated that they weren't able to find anything other than the grants that or the cooperation that we have with the county, that they couldn't find no other grants to do this type of work.
Mhm.
So Mayor Wilson is recommending that staff contacts GrantWorks and to see if they have anything of that possibility. Yes, ma'am. I'm just.
Is it? Can you do that? Can you make that call?
Yes, ma'am. We'll add it to the list.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
The former Mayor Wilson is asking about fog seal, and I don't know anything about that. I'm relying on the county and their expertise since we are currently without a public works director. And he told me today that they did the very best they could to increase the life of that road, and that road now will last much longer. I did ask, so right, so Mayor Wilson is saying that she's heard that you can chip seal a road and then add fog seal as a sealant. I don't know about that, but I did ask Mr. Deaton today if there's anything that he knew that we could spray on it, and he said no, he didn't know of anything, and they've never used anything in that capacity. Right.
So no action on that one. You know what? I'm going to table S is mine. I'm going to table that for tonight because we are already past 8. Well, it's 8:37, and we still got to go back to executive session one more time. And so I will table that. And I was going to wait till the end to make my announcement, but I think what I'll do is just put it out there on the internet, um, so that we can get this thing wrapped up. Anyway, like I said, we've got to go back to executive session. Section B, again, 551.074 personnel. Discuss appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or hear complaint or charge on or employee in executive session unless officer or employee requests a public hearing. This will be the city administrator. It's 8:37.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. We reconvene from executive session at 8:58. And we need a vote from the council to approve the contract for the new city administrator, amended again. Need a motion?
I would like to make the motion to authorize our interim city administrator to execute the contract with our new city administrator. And I would like to say, hopefully, welcome, Ms. DeGan. We really look forward to having you with our city. I know a lot of us have spoken with you, and we see nothing but great things with you with our city. Thank you.
Second?
I'll second.
Was that tie? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Ms. DeGan, you've been approved. All right, it's 8:59, and that will end our, let's need to adjourn, motion to adjourn.
So move.
I have a question before we really vote on that. Are we going to meet on December the 22nd?
No, it's only one council meeting this month.
I can come up here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was just questioning because, that wasn't, I was just making sure.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second it.
Who's the second? Me. Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Budget. Very good, thanks.